What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
Does your book, film, resource, product, or business change people's lives for the better? Hi, I'm Jackie Lappin, founder of Conscious Media Relations, a unique boutique PR firm that helps you connect with your mind, body, spirit, and conscious lifestyle audience in a big way. We reach 3,500 specialty media and all the key mainstream outlets in the United States. I invite you to explore our radio media tour that connects to 2,600 personal growth radio shows. There is just nothing else like it. Come check out our website and read our rave reviews.
The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with William J. Hall, who is the author of the paranormal bestseller The World's Most Haunted House, the true story of the Bridgepoint Poltergeist. Now he returns with another profound investigation into the unknown with his latest book, The Haunted House Diaries. Now Hall is professionally equipped to recognize trickery. After more than 25 years as a performing magician, he knows how to create and recognize illusions. He's also an experienced researcher of the unexplained, from folklore and urban legend to fortune-telling, the pyramids and other mysterious tales. His syndicated column, Magic and the Unknown, ran for 6 years in multiple newspapers. Hall has 2 sons and resides in Plainfield, Connecticut. William J. Hall, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Kevin.
I'm very pleased to have you on. Normally, it's funny. There's a whole load of shows that I'm doing soon on hauntings, and I thought it was just a sort of a Halloween thing, really, but it's it's getting into the latter part of the year right now, and it's fascinating the angle that this story takes as well. Now, obviously, there's a previous book to the book that we're going to talk about today, which we never got a chance to interview you about. But just for the audience, just tell us briefly a bit about your background and how you got into this subject.
My background is as a magician. So in the course of studying that, you come across fake seances and fortune telling and all those kinds of skills you learn in the trade. And magicians are, yes, highly skeptical, but also very curious. So I am surprised, more curious than I thought. I was a little worried about putting my name on true paranormal books, but it turns out my fellow magicians actually have welcomed it. So that's an interesting thing. But so I was always curious about these things, and I used to write for about 6 local newspapers, and investigating these kinds of things, whether exposing certain things as a hoax or whether they were just interesting urban legends, and then of course other stories that were quite intriguing, like UFOs, for example, things that really seemed to have a lot of merit to them as I went along. And that's kind of how I got stuck in it, by finding things that begged more questions, and then being curious and wanting to go further from there. So.
Okay. Now, what led up to the Haunted House Diaries? Because on the front cover, it's got, which I found very interesting, ghosts, aliens, and holes in space and time. So this is, a really interesting story here, which I'm sure has made you completely think outside the box on some aspects of the whole paranormal. But how did you get initially introduced to this case?
Well, when I was investigating the Bridgeport poltergeist, Bridgeport, Connecticut, the famous case that was the subject of my first book, I met Paul Eno. He was one of the main witnesses, still with us, because he was quite young when it happened. He was 21, so we became very close friends. And after we met and talked for a great deal of time, he felt I was ready and started bringing me along and said, "Hey, I got a case in your neck of the woods. Why don't you come and meet the family?" And we actually, I remember the day we were walking in the backyard, the beautiful backyard. And he turns to me, he says, "This might be your next book." And I said, "You sure you don't want to write about it?" He says, "God, I'll never get time." And so that's kind of how it all evolved. He introduced me to the case. I got to know the family. I hate to call it a case because, of course, we're dealing with, of course, real people still here. It's not just, it's ongoing. But it really is like a, shopping mall, the paranormal. In that area and in the farmhouse itself, so many different things happen there that if you were going to go to one place and you wanted to study the paranormal, that's just a perfect place to go, because it's almost like Paul calls it Connecticut's Skinwalker Ranch. You may have heard of the Skinwalker Ranch out in Utah, so he calls this one the Connecticut one. But the great thing about this is the family's not in danger. There's no it's not that kind of thing. It's more fascinating, so it gives you the ability to kind of set up shop and visit and explore and see things and gather evidence. So it's a unique situation.
Absolutely. And how long ago did this case investigation start for yourself?
For me, it was 2013. Paul, it was 2005. So he's been going back there for years. Just visiting with the family and kind of tracking the progress there. But yeah, it's a fascinating place. Yeah, but for me, it was 2013. Did a bunch of stayovers and brought some great people in. Paul, including, of course, as well as Shane Searway, who's like the trifecta of the paranormal, because he's a Native American shaman. He grew up in a haunted house, had a near-death experience. So if he doesn't feel something there, you might as well just leave. And
absolutely.
and Mark D'Antonio, an astrophysicist who's MUFON's Mutual UFO Network's audio video expert. So he was great there, and he, of course, looked at all the photos in the book, and so it was great to have somebody of that level of authority there. And he's a real, we'd call him our resident buzzkill, because he tries very hard to disprove anything that happens. Not as a hoax, just as a scientist, he tries to eliminate, as he should, every single thing that these things could be. So, which is good, because it's as objective as I am, and as I'm a healthy skeptic. And of course, I know the family was on the up and up, but again, we misinterpret things, whether they're photos or, when you're looking for something, you're more apt to find it. So you have to be very careful to remain objective. So having him there was very interesting, because he really works hard at trying to find any rational reason to eliminate all those things before saying, wow, that's a good photo, or wow, that really is a unusual circumstance, because he believes in the paranormal. He's just very scientific about it. So,
well, where does Ed and Lorraine Warren fit into this in terms of timescale when they investigated this case as well?
They stopped over in the 1990s. Ed and Lorraine, Donna, the lady of the house, called them, and they came in the house, and Lorraine walked around, and she said the house really was full, that it was just unbelievably full. She said, don't worry, there doesn't seem to be anything, negative here. But it definitely is a thoroughfare, if you will, and that's when Ed Warren coined it, Ghost Central, And Lorraine, she went up in the bathroom and said she had sensed that she sees her sleeping there, and it used to be a bedroom. So it was, it was interesting. And then they filmed a promo for a TV appearance from, I think, Japan or something, where they were going to do. They filmed it in the house, and that was about it. But
right.
They sat and visited, and it helped. It was good for Donna to hear somebody else, kind of different people giving their take on it, because that was she's very fascinated. She's a very curious person about it, and she grew up with the paranormal, so it wasn't a source of fright. I think a lot of us could have ran for the hills in the same situation if you haven't grown up there.
Yes. And is that right, that the picture in the front of the book, with the sort of drone picture where it's up in the air, is that the house that we're talking about?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, Mark brought his drone over, so we got an aerial view, and actually we still have to do some of the mapping of the area, but yeah, that is house. Very beautiful house near the Groton, Connecticut area. There's a lot of farmland near there, and what we believe is definitely there's a military base of some sort nearby. So,
right, okay. Is that any connection to what's been going on at the house when you mentioned that?
Yeah, we feel it is. Again, it's always tough to know, are they there just because of the flap? Well, maybe not. Although historically, the military has followed around these paranormal flaps. But there were people, including Mark D'Antonio, who would go walking up in that area, whether they're fishing or hiking, and they would be escorted out of there by armed military. We don't know what kind of uniform, just dressed in clothes. They had rifles and stuff, and they said you can't go here. It's a restricted area, and now they have it all fenced off, so you can't get there.
Well, what has that got to do with this particular house, though? What is that military base or that activity?
Well, no, good question. I don't think it's because of the house. I think it's because of the area, because there's a long history of UFO sightings. There's a lot of UFO activity with jets following, sometimes black helicopters, things like that. So it's, I believe it's because of the UFO activity that really was probably the main source of their interest.
Right. Okay. Very interesting. Now, the family that's living in the house currently, is that the same generation of family, or a no connection at all?
No, it's the same family. Donna, who she was born at the hospital, brought back to that house, and she's there now. And six generations of her family grew up in that house. So the farmhouse is from 1793,
Wow.
and there's only been three different families that have lived there. Family lines, of course. So her
Yes.
mother lived there, her grandmother, great grandmother, and so on. So, and as far back as anyone could remember, there's always been activity there. And she grew up with it. So
Right. So this book is based on the diaries, in a sense, dating back to, I think, entries from the 1960s. It starts off with.
yeah, she since she was a teenager, she started writing down in all bits of paper, whether backs of envelopes, later on the kids back of the kids' schoolwork or whatever. She'd write down things that would happen on individual papers, and she had them in a big box, and so she kept a diary for over 50 years now. And so that's the first part of the book. The second part is the other things happening in the area, other haunted houses, UFO activity, and Bigfoot sightings, things like that, and missing time, that kind of thing. And then part three is the investigation. So that's kind of the way I organized it.
Right. Okay.
What we found and what we did when we got there.
So, okay, yeah, part of me really wants to go into what you experienced when you got there, but let's just look at some of the interesting experiences that are in the diaries, if we can do. We're never going to get through the whole experiences because this is quite a decent sized book, but let's just look at some of the more interesting cases.
Well, one of the ones that really fascinated me, and first, just to give a synopsis, they had different kinds of entities, ancestors, previous people who lived in the house. So it just a thoroughfare, if you will, of kind of activity. The kitchen used to be a general store. So, you can hear general store kind of customers hustle, which are what I would assume it would be, the hustle and bustle in there from time to time, as well as horses and horse and buggy outside going by, that kind of thing. So that's very fascinating. But just as far as to set up a general idea what it's like. But one of the things, some very unusual things happen there, and one to give a good example is. So the mother, when Donna was a teenager, finds a note in the mailbox, and it's two friends she hasn't seen in 30 years, and says, "Oh, I had to give them a call." She ends up calling them later, and they're like, "We weren't at the house, and we're not even in the state." So later that day, she finds another note from two other close friends that she hadn't seen in many years, and she says, "Oh, I got to give them a call." So she says, "I got to find their number." And a few hours later, there's a knock on the door, and they're there, and husband and wife. And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry I missed you. I got your note." And they said, "Well, we didn't leave a note. We weren't even planning on stopping by. We just happened to be in the area and figured we'd stop by." And so I asked Donna about the notes, and she said they were like in pencil, and they were kind of written like hard into it. And so she thought that was unusual. I wish she had kept them, but of course I don't know, her mother threw them out or whatever. But so that to me would be an example of, could that be that kind of time slip where in almost like somebody trying to tell them that they know what's going to happen. We talk about predicting the future. We think about things that haven't happened, but when you talk in quantum physics and time and space not being linear, like we think it is, then predicting the future is not so amazing. It actually could be knowing, that future is now the past for wherever these people are. And maybe the first people where they left the note, maybe in a different, universe. This sounds far out, but that's kind of the quantum theory. In a different universe, maybe they did stop by, and this time they didn't. So that's an interesting, from that kind of time slip perspective. Just one of those really weird things, and they have a long history of these kinds of things happening. The invisible friend is another one, which we can talk about. But I didn't know if you had any questions. I didn't want to, I want to give you a chance to talk.
I've got a few questions, but I'll please continue, because this is just fascinating. This to me is takes paranormal investigation on a whole different level.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of like a shopping mall for the, for the paranormal, or a paranormal crossroads, or, when you get into the flap area. And that's why we theorize, well, maybe that's why Bigfoot's good in hide and seek. And maybe that's why when we find a lot of UFO activity, we often find haunted houses. Why is that? Well, because I think they may not know each other, but they all sit next to each other on the same bus, so to speak, So,
definitely.
And this case is kind of paramount to that basic philosophy. The grandson, this is an interesting story. The grandson, back when he was about 4, he's talking about this friend he has, and of course, normally they would think it's a regular invisible friend, but of course, knowing the house, they know they know what goes on there. And children and animals, their dogs and stuff have had these kind of weird experiences. But so he's saying, well, it's Ashwar. It's a little girl in a blue dress, and she got in a car accident. She was with her mother, and the car hit a tree, and she doesn't know where her mother is, but her mother didn't make it, and now she's stuck here in the tree to observe, which of course is a weird thing for a child to say. Because they have a very large tree right in front of the house. So, well, that's where Ashwar is. And he used to put toys around the tree. And like, what are you doing? I'm putting toys out for Ashwar. And of course, little girl in a blue dress is a common, paranormal archetype. It's usually, of course, never a little girl in a blue dress. Now, like I told Paul, I said, he said, I'm scared of little girls when they say little girl in blue dress. I said, yeah, I'm scared of big girls too. He says, yeah, that's a different story. Can't help you with that. But, so he was there in 2010 talking to Dale, the grandson, about this, this invisible friend. And he said, is Ashwar here now? Great question to ask. And Dale said, oh, yeah, Ashwar goes over to the window. Now it's pitch dark. It's at night now. Points to the tree and says, yeah, she's up there in the tree now. So he goes out with his infrared camera and actually films this thing coming down in front of the tree. And he didn't see it at the time. He only saw it when he got back on film. And it turns out we ended up finding this guy, Gregory Harrell, who lives in Florida, who back in the 70s was trying to catch a vandal and put an infrared camera out. And he started filming all the same kind of creature, a bunch of Ashwars. And he filmed them for over a period of a few years. He ended up sending me an hour and a half of video, and I was amazed at how similar they look. So I'm like, what is this? And, that's one that, showed Mark, and he shook his head. This is not a squirrel, it's not anything that we can imagine. And he even said it's not even coming down. We thought it was coming down the tree. He said it's actually in front of the tree. It's not even coming down the tree. But it's just a fascinating thing. And that video actually is available. People can, Google it, Haunted House Diaries, Ashwar, and, you can actually see it yourself. Don't Google it now, though. Wait till after this show. But yeah, so I mean, that's, so we even got video proof, audio proof, as well as, photos. I mean, proof is as much as you can get. Obviously, you have to believe, or else no proof is enough, and, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so that's an example of another fascinating story. But yeah, the things involving the children are particularly bizarre. Very quickly, and then we can go on to some of your questions. But interesting things happened with the children. I mean, Donna driving around, and all of a sudden, her daughter's in the back saying, "Well, before I was your baby, I was this poor boy," and goes on with this long story, and it really scared her. it's like, what is, and she was talking in a very adult voice, not a different voice, but, just very adultish, using words that she normally wouldn't use. And, just there's bizarre stuff like that has happened. Of course, that house is not the only one in the area that has activity. There's lots of houses in that area, but.
What is it about the land, do you think? Or the area? What's different about it, do you think?
Well, this house in particular surrounded, the water definitely is a big part of it. It's a matter of fact, the farmhouse itself is surrounded three sides by water. So Shane believes the flow of the water has, a lot to do with it. He also said it's Native American land, and he said, they didn't come and open portals per se, but they would come and locate them, because that's what they did. They wanted to commune with the spirits, that kind of thing. And he believes that they've invoked spirits, for lack of a better word, to guard that land, and that they've, fully accepted Donna and Bob, and, they're of no trouble. I'm sure if you put a dysfunctional family in there or something, you'd have a lot of negative things coming through. But as far as what makes a portal or flap exist, that of course is more unknown. We can say we find the phenomena around conductors, electromagnetic energy, under a house under power lines, for example, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What makes a flap, that I think that itself is an outstanding question. But why it would maintain being open, quote unquote, and being so strong for so long probably does have a lot of those geo factors associated with it.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's almost into the, as you've said, probably in a different way. It's this interdimensional aspect to it as well. That in the same space, dimensionally, there's something else occupying that space, maybe multiple dimensions.
Yes, yeah, no, I think that's exactly it, and that's why you get houses there that just they're there one day and then they vanish. There was a house people were seeing. They're like, there's not supposed to be a house there. And all of a sudden it's gone. And the people know that area. It's not like the middle of a big city that they don't know or may not have noticed. They know the house is there. It's and some of that crosses over into the UFO realm, like the missing time is sometimes replaced by these kinds of images, like the couple in the book where they encountered this phantom roadblock, as I call it, where the fire engines weren't the right color, the police uniforms were a little off, and they couldn't quite place it, because you're not expecting it, but something's not quite right. In fact, the girl, the guy's girl that was with him, his girlfriend, actually just burst into tears, just knowing something, didn't know what was wrong, but just knew that something wasn't quite right. In fact, he said to me, he thought his first impression was maybe they're filming a movie, because it was close, but it wasn't exact. It was a little off, and the uniforms, it just didn't look, but he's like, well, there's no cameras, there's no lights, there's nothing. And they have this big emergency scene where they're putting out a fire, and there's no, there's no pylons, there's no, the police aren't yelling at him, even though they get close. They're basically ignoring him. And he had to go out of his way to say, what do we do? And then finally, without even looking at him, the officer says, turn around and go that way. And then they come back because they couldn't find the way. So they come back to the scene. It's like just 10 minutes later and the whole thing's gone.
Well, it's one of the angles I was going to go on as well. About the assumption that the paranormal, if our understanding of the paranormal is all wrong in a sense, and there's a new paradigm that we need to look at as paranormal investigators, that ghosts are not not spirits of the dead potentially, but that they might be. It's the angle of quantum physics and that energy can't be destroyed. So potentially our consciousness lives forever, but not as we understand it.
Right. No, that's very true. I mean, we do know for a fact that ghosts are not always spirits of the dead. What we of course, we can't say that they're never spirits of the dead, but quantum physics would say, if this interpretation is true, that technically there is no death, like you said, that there's, and that some of these quote unquote spirits, the reason they think they're being haunted sometimes too is because we're looking to them as they look to us, because we're both in each other's kind of like an intersecting, like Paul describes as two bubbles coming together, kind of two parallel worlds, or parallel world intersect. So that they're very much alive doing their own thing, kind of like the and then people say, well, those are residual hauntings, but a lot of those residual things you can disturb, you can interact with, that they're not stuck there forever. I think they appear to be stuck, but we can't say for sure that they're like a film, because that's something that can happen within the quantum explanation. So, and a lot of those residual hauntings have been, you poke the right way and you can get them to continue or whatever. But that's why some of these things don't interact with. Sometimes they interact with us, sometimes they don't. They're just going about their business. And both of those situations happened in the house. Donna's mother, would go down and do the laundry and hear a voice saying, "What are you doing?" And she would just say, "I'm doing the laundry," and that was it. And there's a time when Michelle, the daughter's sick, and there's two spirits saying, well, what should we do? And they're trying to chip in and help out, like they're part of the family.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So there's not been any negative experiences, like a poltergeist would generally be.
Yeah. There were a few that you would experience that you would interpret as negative. I can tell you that probably if other people were there, they would. Some people hear footsteps and yell demon and run. So, but Donna wasn't like that. She hears footsteps. She's like, they're footsteps, could belong to anybody. And she's seen the little boy kind of figure by size with elongated ears and, different kinds of clerics and shadow people and, things of that sort. But she never yelled demons. So I think, when you say negative, a lot of people think a banging on the wall is a very negative or evil thing. But I prefer not to. I think we're very easy at prescribing emotions to things that really are neutral. Our reactions could be negative, but the item itself isn't necessarily negative. Banging on the wall isn't necessarily a negative thing at all. In fact, may not even be paying attention to us. And, other times the things or people or spirits or whatever are. And other times they're hiding and kind of don't want to be disturbed. So it kind of runs the gamut. But there were a few what you would call negative things. But I would say, overall, if you're especially if you interpret them in the quantum physics kind of lens, a lot of those things that you otherwise would deem negative or demons or something, you would view them just as what they are, which are, the paranormal experiences.
Yeah, because we have to be very careful, don't we, sometimes, that we don't tend to think that the movies, that that these investigations that you do are like the movies, even that Lorraine Warren and those cases weren't quite like that. Hollywood has to sex it up a little bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they can't help themselves, and but that's that we're picky. That's what we want, and real life is much different, and you have to be there a lot and stay there a long time, and all the rest of it.
Well, there's an interesting question as well. What is the paranormal activity like there now?
It's still ongoing. It's again, it's not a mile a minute. Donna has said, and the diaries reflect it was a lot more active with the children there. And I think, now it's just her and her husband. I think when the house was full of people, maybe it is just as active. Maybe it's just that the house isn't full of people now, so less people notice it or whatever. But Donna still tells me when something happens there. But things still go on. Some of them are small, like the shades, feeling a cold breeze and the shades just lifting up and falling off, that kind of thing. And as she describes it, it's not something she's scared of, she obviously jumps just like anybody would. It's more the unexpectedness of it, not the actual act, because the act of seeing these things or experiencing them are rather quick most of the time. So it's more of that. But over the years, she's recorded a lot of EVPs herself, just recording on a regular cassette recorder or whatever, because she was fascinated by it, wanted to learn about it, and that really was why she called Paul into it. It wasn't to solve anything. It was she thought the quantum physics theory was interesting and wanted to talk about it, and wanted to know, how do we, get more pictures. She was very fascinated by it, and so it is a unique situation, and she's 100% truthful too. I mean, she actually would help us debunk photos. If we took a photo and we're away from the house, and say, what is this black thing in this photo? Because we're not right there at the house. And she said, oh no, that's the oil tanker. So she was very helpful, throughout it. She didn't need to embellish anything. In fact, that was one of her fears, is because she said, well, I can only tell you what happened. And I mean, people, of course, they're looking for all kinds of crazy stuff. And, she jokes about that it's, it's much different in real life. And you hear that from people who have, even who've been in pretty negative, haunted houses. It's more like the slow burn than the mass. You get some exceptions or some periods of time, but, overall.
Absolutely. And when you stayed at this property, what experiences did you have?
Well, we set up cameras that would take 3 consecutive time pictures whenever it detected movement, and we also had the voice activated recorder set up. And so a few things. I saw a shadow figure, for lack of a better word, cross a hallway. Unfortunately, we weren't recording yet. I was all happy. I thought we were, and Shane said, no, we haven't started recording yet. And I'm like, oh, great, We also saw this thing cross in front of the house that we did catch on camera. So that was interesting. And Mark, of course, he went through, made sure it wasn't frost and all, he went through where the cameras were and all that. So it wasn't headlights or anything. And also the entrance to the workshop, where Shane said was, one of the most active rooms. We set up everything, went upstairs for like 15 minutes, went back down just to check on everything. And one of the doors was open, blocking the way to the workshop there. And of course, I tried to close it and see if it could swing open by itself and stuff, but it actually was magnetically closed. So, and it was completely, even if you open it and stop, it wouldn't move. It just, it wasn't on a slant or anything. So I did, test it out and stuff. So that had happened. And there were parts of the house where you just felt like there was hundreds of people there, I guess, for lack of a better word to describe it. And, we did go around with EMF meters, and, I wanted to, of course, make sure that you're not feeling something as a result of, a normal kind of electromagnetic, because they can come in through water pipes and stuff like that, and that could change your mood and alter the way you think and stuff like that. So we worked hard to eliminate the the regular kind of things. And the voices, we did use a ghost box, which, not really thrilled with some of the equipment, but we had it all. We figured we'd try at a place like that, since we knew all the other stuff that went on. That would be the place to try it. And we asked each question 3 times. What's your name? We heard Henry. We asked again. We heard Henry.
Wow.
And then I asked, what's your last name? And we got Wilcox, which when I talked to Donna, this was early on in the investigation, she said, oh, well, that's Harry Wilcox, is William Wilcox's brother. William purchased the land to build a house there. So that was pretty neat, and then of course the historical society, when you looked at the stuff, you saw the names there and stuff. But she said she believes he lived in the house at one time or helped build it. So we did get the back and forth question and answer, as well as picking up voice phenomena basically every time we were there. Paul's son Ben put it well when he said, every time you're there, there's something new. So
What was the that's incredible. And just out of curiosity, what was the family's experience with UFOs then?
Um, they saw them. Actually, Donna actually reported one to the Mutual UFO Network. It was a low flying UFO. Her and the neighbors saw it. So she's seen them over the years. And what's interesting, there's a lot of phenomena that happen inside the house that they didn't know was UFO related. You know, the way the lights entered the room, the figure of lights kind of thing. They just related as paranormal activity. But there was a lot of similarity between those descriptions and the UFO phenomena.
Yes.
You know, because when something happens inside, we tend to think ghost. If it happens outside, we tend to think, UFO. So, it's just the way we try to put it into context. And without the context, it's hard to come to the conclusion of UFOs. And Mark was interested in this case because he actually had a missing time experience as a young boy at Burr Pond, which is nearby. And he years later had an implant taken out, which is, and it's so bizarre because he's probably the best witness you can ever have for that kind of thing because, being the skeptic he is. But, yeah, I mean, he had a missing time there. And there's just there's a long history of, when you talk to people in the area of things that happen. And, there's a lot of urban legends around the area too, so it's hard to tell which is which, but just of the things that were of similar nature, like Bigfoot sightings have been going on there there were stories of UFOs at the mountain there, Mohawk Mountain, obvious Native American area, which is now a ski resort, of UFOs going there and talking to the sky people, talking to the community. So, and those go hundreds of years back. So, I mean, it's a long history, and there's some famous Bigfoot sightings there, from the 50s on up to today. So it's an active area for that. And I learned Massachusetts has a lot of active, and maybe it's along that same line. I don't know. So there's a few flaps going on there, and they tend to, involve, land and sky, so.
What has been, would you say, the analysis of this phenomena then at this property for yourself? I mean, has it changed you as a person? Has it changed your thinking into the paranormal?
I think I thought the same way before, as far as, the quantum aspect, and but it definitely made it deeper and more well-rounded, because it was a place where you can experience a lot of different things. And the other thing was working with Shane was, Paul, Shane, and Mark are probably, in my mind, three of the brightest guys to be doing this stuff. So, some people talk to me and says, geez, are you sure you haven't been doing this for 50 years? Because it seems like you know so much. I said, well, I really have to credit, I had great mentors, and I think that's why I wasn't scared too. People say, well, were you scared? Well, I wasn't. I probably would be scared if I thought they were demons, or, but I don't believe in demons. So it's a little bit different. But so I think having the understanding and explanation is, prepares you a great deal. And then by seeing and investigating it, I think it just makes it deeper. But with Shane, it added an extra level because, being a magician, when it comes to psychics, things like that, it's very difficult for me. I know people have, I do believe people have feelings and sensitivities to this stuff. I mean, there's no question about it. And to me, that's not even supernatural. That's the way our minds work, right? I mean, we recognize other people who have the same facial expressions as people we met before that we didn't like or trust, so, and we do it all instantly. So I can imagine growing up in a haunted house, you walk in another house, you can sense that same kind of thing. So, but as a magician, a lot of the other insights that a psychic could have were very difficult for me to open myself up to. And hearing Shane, because he walked in the house, he never read the diary, and he mentioned things about the house and land and diary that he sensed that Donna had written about over the years. And I could see her face as she was in shock that he would even know this stuff. And I was blown away because I know he didn't read it. And to me, that was amazing. In fact, we found a hollow area of the land in the backyard by the drone. But when Shane went there, it was the winter. It was all covered with snow, and he says, "Yeah, I sense there's a hollow area over here." And so to me, that was a real added dimension to it, because I never experienced anyone who really had that kind of sensitivity.
They're out there. They definitely
Right,
are.
yeah.
And
that's the first time I experienced that level.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like any industry, isn't it? There's the good and the bad,
Right.
And there's the genuine ones.
Yeah.
As well. Okay. Now, how can readers sort of keep up to date as these experiences continue? Can we at all? Can the readers keep up to date with what's going on at this property?
Yes, certainly. There's besides my Facebook page, actually my website, williamjhallauthor.com. You can sign up for a newsletter, and also you can follow me on Facebook, and I update things. And also with the book, when you purchase the book, there's a bonus web page, and there's some extra diary entries there. So I update any new things and findings, on that page to keep it up to date. Gotta love the internet. So.
Oh yes. Oh, that's great. So yeah, so that's all available when they purchase the book. That's very interesting. I mean, you've got to. This is a fascinating case. There's so many aspects to it. Where would you go from here then, as a paranormal investigator? I mean, what are you working on now? Where are you going?
I'm doing a lot of individual cases, and so I'm thinking that probably will be what the next book I'm thinking would be a collection of different cases and investigations, and I think that'll bring some different perspective, and I'll tackle some things that have been written about in books that no one's ever really solved. I'm going to go deeper. Some legends that people say, geez, that's interesting. Did it happen? Well, some of them I've solved. And it's, always weird that way, trying to go the extra level. If I bought a UFO book when I was a kid, my friends would say, well, you can't believe what's in the book. And I say, no, you're right. I'll order the document myself, So I always tried to go the one step further. So, there's plenty of good researchers that do the same, and of course that's why we read the books, because we can't investigate it all ourselves. So I'm the same way. That's
absolutely.
What it'll be is a bunch of individual things.
What do you think this investigation has taught you about the nature of consciousness?
Oh, good question. Well, quantum physics would say consciousness, right? That the world's based on consciousness and not matter. And I don't know if it's given me more answers, but it's definitely given me more questions, and asking those questions in a deeper and more real way, because that's really what it gets down to is, what does this mean? It's one thing to know it's out there, or to read about cases from people you trust, but when you experience it, it definitely hits you again to keep asking, and it'll be interesting to see what we find out. I mean, just in the last 2 years or so, the strides we made with quantum physics has been, incredible. But who knows? It could be hundreds of years. Yeah, I'm hoping not. But like everything else, we solve one thing and then we get more questions. So.
It seems to be the way, doesn't it? It's never, there's never one truth. There's many in this case,
right.
And more truths lead to other truths. But what about as a paranormal investigator, seeking the answers to how to better ourselves? What information do you think you've brought forward here that could maybe in a chance to improve who we are as well, and where we're going? Is it to really just to for your proof was maybe that consciousness continues, and therefore, what we do here may be of great importance, or
I think the big stressor is the thing to stress the most is when it comes to consciousness is just how important our thoughts are. I mean, inherently we know that, right? We know if we're thinking bad thoughts all the time, uh, yes, okay, if you hit the right frequency, parasite can come in and that's paranormal and it's bad. But even aside from that, we all know if you're thinking bad, you can literally make yourself sick, you can make yourself depressed, we know that instinctively. But I think when you go into the paranormal aspect of it, you really see just how those negative thoughts could wreak havoc on you, even by inviting something in if you reach the right frequency of thought, and how correcting those thoughts is really the answer of getting rid of these negative kind of parasites, if you will. So to me, that fascinates me. It really reinforces the fact of, that our thoughts really matter. And even in everyday life, because it's not as in your face as a negative or poltergeist or things like that. It's not as in your face, but it definitely is a slow whittling away of your health and other things. So.
Very true, very true. Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of paranormal investigators, and it's always been the case of, the hauntings and other such, activity in a house and everything else. But it's never really, well, what information can we bring from that could maybe improve our life now?
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I think it keeps, for me, it keeps real magic around. It lets me know that the world is more magical than I thought many years ago. Even though I was always big into UFOs, but other than that, the other stuff was iffy. I didn't really know. I knew people who had experiences, and I trusted them, but you never quite know. And it was tough because being a magician, the stuff that you've been taught. Religions have started with less. So when you're able to produce quote unquote fake miracles like that, it becomes very difficult to think that somebody was skilled enough to know what they saw, kind of, So
yes, yes,
yeah. So now being on the other side, of course, people are probably looking at me the same way, but
well, no, I think the side you come from is really important. You're very grounded in a sense. And the opposite side, so I think that this only enhances, the work that you're doing and gives it a completely different angle as well. So no, I think that's great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I thought I was going to learn more about, or not learn more about, but I thought the skill would come more into play of telling whether something is real or not. But what it's really done is help me be more objective. Because magic, you can do the same trick and present it 5 different ways. So I can present it to you as, as a transposition, changing places of an object, or time travel, or, just by the words I say, I can make your experience differ. So using that same logic, the things that I've learned from magic, I have to constantly question, am I putting this in a context just because it's convenient or makes sense to me? Or is this really, the context, and we're all guilty of that, right? Because we all do that. So I try to really say, oh, I saw this. And some people, they interpret things and this is exactly what it is. And that's it. And it's very hard to do that because you're dealing with things that aren't from here. We can't even figure ourselves out, So
it's so true what you say. It's so true, and I've had my own proof just recently on a few things. Really, it come up from the blue from nowhere, and it smacked me right across the face. And you can't take those personal situations away sometimes from you, and it's like, well, you have to go with it, don't you? Just as you've done, gone with it, and seen it through, and come out the other end a little bit more open and wiser.
Right, and that's why I always say, when people say, "Well, what is it?" and I said, "Well, the quantum physics explanation is kind of the best theory, but I wouldn't bet my life on it." I wouldn't bet my life on anything because we don't know everything yet. And the other thing I'll say is, I could be wrong because I've been wrong about a lot of simple things. Never mind something as, as out there and as on the forefront of science is this. So.
But
and
you can't,
always
you can't
remind
deny
myself how many times I've been wrong just about stupid little stuff.
Yes, but you can't deny the facts, though.
Oh, no, but it makes the interpretation of those experiences, you try to be more open to them. I'll give you an example. There was a group, I was doing a lecture, and there was a few people that went on an investigation and said there was something evil in the house. And I said, well, what makes you say that? I said, well, we went in there, we can feel the energy, and we all felt sick. I said, well, why did you say that was evil? And they said, well, we felt sick. I said, well, but that's not evil. Sick isn't evil. The outcome is not good for you, right? Made you sick. But you're saying that means the energy is evil. That's not true at all. There's lots of things that make us sick. I mean, you could breathe too much gasoline and get sick, but gasoline itself isn't evil. It's not good or evil. It just is, So that's what I try to do, is remain objective to my interpretation of it. But no, certainly not denying, I know there's paranormal out there. It's very easy to identify what's real, what's not. Well, I shouldn't say very easy, but easier now that. Yeah.
Yes, you've worn the T-shirt a bit more. Yeah. You've had the experience.
When you add in mental illness and
well, yeah.
Also, we just had a case where there was a crazy amount of electromagnetic energy coming in through the water pipes, and we do believe that there was a parasite there. That there was something paranormal going on, but. We had to look at what happened and say, well, could the electromagnetic energy, the EMF from the water pipes, could that have been what was changing their moods? Could that have been what caused cancer for one of the occupants? These are things, was it the paranormal or was it that? And how do you separate them? And, one feeds on the other, but, you have to look at it all. So, yeah, it's still complicated. But what I mean is you talk to somebody for 10 minutes, if you've been doing it for a while, as you can tell if they're faking it, the story doesn't make sense. Or they just say something that lets you know they're crazy. I've had that happen too.
Yes, and mental illness can play a part in it, as it does. It's So you've got to keep it balanced as well. But then it's a fascinating book, and we've been putting your other book on the screen as well.
Oh, thank you.
I'd just like to say, William Holt, just thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.